Welcome to YT Preacher. I'm Jman, and I'm your YT Preacher. Today we're looking at Genesis chapter 1, verse 2. The earth was without form and void, and darkness was over the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters. Genesis 1, 2. Now, when I read the English Standard Version, and I was reading these, I noticed that verses 1 and 2 are in a paragraph together, meaning that they are connected to the English Standard Version's way of translating the Bible. Now, in the King James Version, every verse is separate. The King James Version is a very poetic version of Scripture anyway, and each verse is its own separate verse. So, saying that the King James Version finding anything connected, it's more poetic than that. For the English Standard Version, they thought that it was important to connect Genesis 1:1 and Genesis 1:2 so that it would read like this in Scripture. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was without form and void, and darkness was over the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters. So that if you were to read it, you would read that paragraph all as one. It's an interesting thing to note because you can, based on what I was just telling you, based on what I told you yesterday, you can see how they fit together and how they do mesh. Now, commentators have had some speculation about this because in here it starts talking about the face of the waters and the face of the deep and darkness and void and the earth. First of all, some commentators have said that when you translate it from Hebrew to English, the words, they're just not enough in English to actually say what it's saying in Hebrew. The second thing I want to say about it is when we're putting these words into it so that we can try and have a picture in our mind, because as we read, we want to have a picture in our mind, we come up with words that just aren't good enough to describe what it would have looked like. For us to say that God was hovering over the face of the waters when we know that, or when according to the author of Genesis at this point, he doesn't create the waters for a couple of days, there can't be waters there. There's something there that he's hovering over, but it's void of anything, because it does say it was a void and a darkness. The darkness here would just be an absence of light, and this void is just a way of saying that there's nothingness there. So whatever he's hovering over, water, calling it water in the placement of where the earth will be and where the water will be is the best way that they can do that. Plus, using this inference of water and earth give us a spherical shape, which kind of goes to other Near Eastern creation stories. In those stories, they have to do with a bird floating over a watery egg. And it kind of harkens to that, where God is saying that he's doing the same sort of thing so that if they've heard the other stories of creation, they can say, well, my God did the same thing. But it's still different because it's our true God. It's not a mystic, some other kind of God. It's not the Egyptian gods. It's not the Babylonian gods. It's the God who did create heaven and earth. But it does kind of parallel those so that we can see some of those stories. Just checking my notes here. So if we understand this earth is nothing, is void, then to understand the word earth that way, there's no earth to see there. So this is where me and commentators have kind of an issue, because some of the commentators are like, well, the earth is here, so he couldn't have created... And no. You're missing the point of what the author is saying, in my opinion. Now, maybe I'm missing it too. I don't know. So go ahead and put that in the comments down below. Tell me what you're thinking of this so far. Any comments, questions, all that can go in the comments section down below. Don't forget to subscribe. And thank you for watching, and God bless.